Welcome to a brand new edition of Rick and Bubba University, the podcast. And Bubba, it is going to be one of our favorite topics, and that is deer hunting. Now, before some of you panic, if this is not your thing, we're going to get uniquely into an aspect of this that I think may be fascinating, because I know you and I, we've talked about this. We both, have had, pets, and we've had dogs, and you and I, we grew up in a different era. Now, we've become people who actually have dogs that really don't bring anything to the table other than a snuggle.
Yeah, we have designer dogs now.
But when you and
uses a pillow.
When you and I were growing up, we were raised around working dogs.
Oh, yeah.
These are dogs that brought something to the table.
Good old beagles.
They could hunt. And if they couldn't hunt, you might go back to the pen and finally realize they're not there anymore, as Dad had moved them on to somebody else, or Pawpaw or somebody. Yep. But the dogs needed to bring something to the table. And really, what dogs can do can be fascinating.
Yeah,
they're extremely intelligent, and they're special. And if you've ever been around people who have a really good hunting dog or a working dog, I mean, that dog is treated like royalty. And I've got friends that have great bird dogs and retrievers and like you said, beagles and hounds and everything you can think of. But today we're going to be talking to some people about a very special dog called Gator.
Gator.
Well,
what about when you're a famous dog?
Yeah, a famous dog named Gator. So with us today is Brian Morris and his son Briar, who's with him as well. They come to us via South Alabama. And Brian, first of all, let me just give you a big warm welcome to Rick and Bubba University, the podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for being here. We heard about your story because we have all. It just happened to me. I wish I had known you. It just happened to me not too long ago, this past deer hunting season. One of the things that we all enjoy, not just trophies, but we all enjoy when you see a young man or woman, a child or a young person, or just anybody who's never done it before, when they harvest their first deer, there's nothing that takes the air out of that experience for you to walk to where they are, tell me where the deer went. Maybe it didn't die on the spot, and they have a resilience to live. And you say, where did the deer go? And it just happened to me a few weeks ago. And they're like, I have no idea. I was so excited. I was jumping up and down. I was high-fiving my dad, and we looked up, and the deer is gone. Where did it go? Well, we don't really know. It could go in one of four different directions. And then after that, who knows what it did? And we were not able to find the deer, and it was the first deer that a boy had ever harvested. But what you do with this world-famous dog named Gator, you try to keep that from happening.
We try, yeah.
Yeah, you try. And tell me, when did you discover that Gator had a knack for this?
Well, we started doing this before we got Gator. So
okay.
He's really our third dog that we've done this with.
Okay.
We had some older stuff that we were doing it. We were chasing them with and getting them with, but Gator would bay really good, so we run dogs is how we hunt. And he got to where he was baying deer at the hunting club, so I started taking him to recover deer also with us, because we run into live stuff all the time that needs to be bayed. And whenever we discovered he could do that, it just...
So what do you mean? Somebody who's watching this or listening to this, when you say the dog can bay, what do you mean by that?
Stand back and bark at it when he locates it, and hold it in one spot and distract it until we can get in there and get it killed.
So is he strictly deer, or does he?
Oh yeah, straight deer.
Yeah, so he doesn't do coons or anything like
and
that.
And he's strictly injured deer, so he won't run an uninjured deer.
Okay.
So he's trained, I say he's trained. Gator picked up on something that they call interdigital scenting. So when a deer is injured, he changes his scent out of a gland that is between his toes.
Okay.
So what it does is parts per million of that gland skyrocket and makes that deer unique to all the other deer. So we can really track beside a live deer that is not injured and never affect that deer, never really move it. We've seen deer on trails that we were trailing a deer, following blood, and there'd be a deer standing over there at 20 yards, and Gator go right by it, and us walk right by it and never bother it.
Well, what is the cause for that deer and that that scent to be given off?
It's a hormone in the brain, as far as I understand it, that goes to this gland, and it's physically a wax. So there's a wax coming out of this gland at all times. But whenever he is injured, it multiplies by millions and starts.
Really?
We call it an injury scent, and the easiest way for us to explain it is tell you that the deer changes scents when he's injured. So, and he kind of does, but it just gets really, really strong.
I just wonder why. I mean, why physiologic? I can't say that word now. Why physically the deer does that? What purpose does it serve?
I can't answer that one for you.
Do you think it is to alert other deer of danger?
It could be.
And do you think it could be, because you have, let's face it, the Lord God made a cleanup crew.
Yeah,
that's right.
And they're really good at it. It could be signal to the cleanup crew. It's time for y'all to get on the move.
Yeah, maybe.
Because suppose this deer's suffering and dying, it'll provide food for the predators and the scavengers. And it's maybe a signal to them.
It's a good idea, maybe.
That dinner's about to be served.
And our job is to starve the coyotes. So.
Right, yeah. Well, and because, when someone, there's no doubt that the scenario I just presented is an emotional one. It's the first time anybody's ever, tried to harvest a deer, and maybe they didn't make a clean shot, or sometimes deer get hit pretty good, but they're still incredibly resilient.
Yes.
And the things that they do, they hide real well, and they're hard to find.
Yeah. Deer in the rut, whenever he's got testosterone running through him,
oh yeah,
a 5-year-old buck deer is he's got a will to live like nothing else in the world.
Oh yeah,
and when you shoot him, double lung shot, he still go 200 yards.
Yeah, and even if he's down, you got to be able to find him.
Oh yeah. And with the guns, we pick on everybody with a 6.5 Creedmoor, but everybody with a 6.5 Creedmoor is shooting a little bitty round and putting a pinprick through his heart.
Right, right.
He don't bleed.
Right.
So we find deer at 75 yards at times, but that's not very often. But with those smaller rounds, a 223, 6.5 Creedmoor, 7mm 08, he just don't bleed. Right. So they can't find him. They spend an hour in the woods and then give up and call you. You're most everybody's last resort is calling us.
So is that what you do commercially? If somebody can't find a deer, they call you, and you're like Ghostbusters. You come out,
yeah, pretty much.
And you put Gator out, and I mean, because you're working against the clock too, and usually darkness.
Well,
in a lot of cases,
we work. I would prefer to work solely in the dark because the safety of the dog. Right. There's no hunters in the woods in the dark.
That's true.
Right. We have tracked. I put him this year on a 44-hour-old track with 2 1-inch rain showers in between, and we jumped the deer and were able to determine that it was still alive. And a week later, we got him back on camera. The hunter got him back on camera to prove that he was still alive.
Wow!
So
44 hours and 2 rain showers,
2 1-inch storms,
and he could still find it.
And he can still find it.
That's an amazing animal. I know you've got all kinds of stories, but I gave you the one of the first deer, but really maybe even more intense, and I've talked to some friends about this, this is the biggest deer I've ever seen in my whole life, and I hit him, and we can't find him.
Yeah.
I would think in that case, because even if it's the first one, somebody said, "Well, we'll give you another opportunity."
Yeah, you'll get more.
But when you see one that you're like, "This is
the all-time biggest.
This is the deer of my lifetime," I bet you've arrived with some pretty intense hunters.
Oh yeah. You see the highest of highs and the lowest of lows doing this.
Yeah.
And so is he the best tracking dog you've ever had?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh really? And you said this is the third one you've had?
Well, tracking dog.
Tracking.
And I've owned hundreds of.
Of course, yeah.
Right.
Walker dogs.
Is he tied to the other dogs that did this before, or is it a whole nother genetic?
He was bred. His mama was a coon dog. His daddy was a hog dog, and he was bred to be a hog dog, and we ended up with him. So,
really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what type of dog is he exactly?
He's a cross between a running walker, fox dog, and a treeing walker coonhound.
So is that? But that is the type. Is that a beagle? Is that what
it's walker dog, treeing walker dog?
Yeah, because the coloring of him, he does look like a large beagle.
He's a little longer legged.
Yeah, he's a little over knee high.
Yeah,
to me,
he's pretty dog.
Yeah. And how old is he now?
He'll be 3 in March.
3. So what about when you're going out? I was going to say, are there certain things that you think I just don't think we can do it? But if you can go 44 hours in 2 1-inch rainstorms, and find one? Is there anything that you'd say, I just don't think Gator can do this?
My deal the whole time I've been doing this is I don't screen phone calls.
Right.
I put Gator on everything that we can get to, physically get to in a day's time.
You try it.
I try everything.
Right.
We joke about back whacks all the time. A back whack is when you hit a deer in what we call no man's land. Above the shoulder, in the back straps, basically.
Right.
No vitals.
Right.
Nothing happens.
And
you knock him down, he falls down, he lays there dead, plays possum. 2 minutes later, he's up and gone. No blood, no sign, nothing but the kick marks in the ground. He's gone, never seen again. We can't track that deer. Now, I get that phone call. That's one of the most common things I get a call on is one of those. And I don't refuse them because every once in a while you'll catch one of them. But
so it does happen sometimes.
It does. What are we, 3? We've been doing this with Gator for 3 years, and I think we found 2 or 3 of those.
Yeah.
But I put on 100.
Yeah, I think that's what happened in the one I had a couple of weeks ago because the deer got knocked down, and the deer was down, so Daddy and son start high-fiving, and they look up, and the deer's gone.
Yep.
And we found maybe the end of my finger.
A prick of blood.
Yeah, and that was it.
Just a little meat, maybe some hair, some brown hair. It's about all you ever see.
Yeah. And that unfortunately that means he or she can still
Be back on camera. Yeah, be very healthy before too long.
So they can fight through that.
Oh, absolutely.
That's not a death shot. Not enough blood to bleed them out.
No,
and the meat and everything. Just
it takes and one of the most common things you hear is this thing's got to bleed out eventually. No, it's going to take a gallon of blood for a deer to bleed out. Mm-hmm. And blood's like oil. Once you spill a little oil up under a truck, then it looks like you've poured the whole gallon out. But no, it's what we see. Everybody says good blood trail. No, there's not really a great blood trail. That's 100 yards worth of drips there.
Yeah, I see. I see what you're. All right. We'll come back. I want to continue more and hear some of the stories and some of the deer y'all been able to find. And even right today, you said you're feeling a little under the weather because you just had a big time adventure that included a lot of water, right?
It did, yes.
All right, we'll come back more when Rick and Bubba University, the podcast, continues.
This is the Rick and Bubba Show. Watch more at blazetv.com/Rick and Bubba.
Rick and Bubba, Rick and Bubba.
All right, so Bubba, we've been talking about this, and I think people chuckle just a little bit when you and I start talking about Tommy John underwear.
Well, I got mine on today.
Well,
love them.
Yeah, me too. And if you're thinking about Rick and Bubba, you don't want to think about our underwear. I got that, but I will tell you this: if you ever wear a pair of underwear that's not Tommy John, then you put on Tommy John underwear, you're going to figure out pretty quick that it actually does matter what brand of underwear that you're wearing, because Tommy John, they have designed underwear. Now they have stuff for women too. There's stuff for y'all there, but we're really landing on the men, because a lot of underwear for men is not really designed for comfort. And Tommy John says, we're going to take with the way we do our fabrics, you're going to stay cool. You're going to have moisture wicking, meaning you're not going to, if you do start sweating a little bit, you're not going to get raw, as Greg would say, and that kind of stuff. Yeah. They're not going to ride up on your legs if you're wearing the boxer briefs. They're going to stay where they're supposed to stay. The bands around the waist, they're not going to double up on you either. So if you'd like to find out more, and we're going to save you 20% right now, if you go to TommyJohn.com/RickBubba, put our name together, don't put an and in there, 20% off right now at TommyJohn.com/RickBubba. And here's what we say about the reviews that we get. Tommy John says, if you try our underwear and it's not the best pair that you've ever worn, then they'll refund your money. So there you go. So make the move right now. Go Tommy John's new spring designs. Now, just in time for spring coming up, you're going to be going off on spring break or taking trips when it gets there. See the new line right now. You're going to love them. Go to TommyJohn.com/RickBubba for 20% off. That's TommyJohn.com/RickBubba. Rick and Bubba University, the podcast. Brian Morris is here with us today. His son Briar as well. They're part of South Alabama's Deer Tracking Service, and we're talking about the track dog Gator, which, I guess we could have had him on the show today, but I don't know how well he does indoors.
No.
Well, so tell us about this tracking adventure you just went on that you had to deal with a lot of water.
So Friday we got a call from a fellow tracker, and he had a deer that we thought was going to be alive from the get-go, and he was going to go check it out. So he went and checked it out, and when we got through what we were doing on another track down the road, we went and going to give him a hand. And when we got there, we put Gator on it, got it started, worked it out, and finally got the deer jumped and alive. And what did he go through? 3 ponds. We bait him in the first pond. He swam it. We bait him in the second pond. He crossed State Route 94 onto some other property. And all amongst all this, we were, 3 different property owners, I think. We were having to run back and forth to the house and get permission to make phone calls.
I was going to ask you, do you have to do that?
Oh, yeah. It's fines. We can't.
You don't go run off on somebody's land.
No. When you get to a fence or a property line, we stop the dog. And get permission to move to the next one. But the hunter's friend was actually running back and forth and getting permission to pursue, and finally got in him. On the last property we ended up on, there was like a 25-acre lake on it.
Oh, no.
And Gator ran in there and bait him. And me and Briar get down there. This is a video that he showed earlier. We got down there, and he turned the phone on and went to videoing, and I got slipped around to him, and he went back to swimming across the other side of the pond, and I got him shot and down. But when I shot him, he nosed over. And went like tail up in the water.
No.
So Gator goes over there and puts paws on him, and he disappeared.
No.
It's 10 foot deep. I found that out about 5 minutes later whenever I jumped in to get him out.
Oh, no. But
40-degree weather.
That's about 40-degree weather, and you're in
cold.
10 foot of water with a buck?
Yeah, with a dead one, yeah.
Which probably weighs what?
200 pounds.
Oh, yeah.
Probably 180. That deer's pretty big.
Yeah. How in the world? I mean, I get you.
I never did get my hands on him.
Really?
So the next day, we go back with treble hooks and get in a boat out there, and we've got a treble hook that's like 6 inches.
So you were fishing for a dead deer on the bottom of the lake.
Yeah, it looked like alligator. Looked like alligator fishing. You know those hooks that you see on the alligator show? Yeah. We got some hooks like that, and me and a friend of mine spent about 20 minutes throwing that hook, and finally I got him hooked and pulled him up by his horns. It was an adventure. Everything with us is an adventure. So you put the dog out, it's going to get interesting.
Yeah. So when you've already mentioned this, so you're saying that when somebody, because you always want to make a good shot, and sometimes you can, sometimes you can't, and if it's a big enough deer. Look, I know I've been around. Some people say, "Look, it's the only shot I had, and I took it."
Buck fever.
Yeah, and all that, and sometimes they can be running or whatever. So you've already said if you shoot through the meat on the top, the back strap,
right,
then the odds of us finding that deer are pretty low.
You're right.
Right.
Very low.
Yeah, and then the other one, I would say that can be difficult, even though you may find some sign for a while, is if you shoot low.
I would prefer back to the scent.
Right.
So the interdigital scent, I try to break it down in thirds of a body. So the lower third of the deer's body is where he's scenting the most. Mm-hmm. Middle third, he's average scent, and the upper third of his body, not to include his hips and his neck, would be the least scent. So he's going to scent for 100 yards if you shoot him in the back strap. But if you shoot him in the leg, he's going to scent forever, for 3 or 4 hours as far as he walks, but he's not going to go that far shot in the leg. Right. He's going to lay down. But, I mean, it all depends on where you hit him at to what scent you get out of him.
How about that?
We're not actually trailing blood. I don't need blood. I prefer that you don't have blood.
Not when Gator arrives. Now, why do you prefer you don't have blood? Because it confuses?
No, because the hunter's going to keep tracking him.
Oh, I see.
And he's going to walk in there and walk circles when he finds the blood, or push him. Yeah. And whenever he finds the blood, he's got all that scent on his feet. Mm-hmm. So when he loses the last blood, what's he going to start doing? Grid searching. Yeah. Walking circles. He's going to spread the scent out. It's all over the place, and then it messes my dog's
nose. You're saying the blood trail keeps the hunter involved too much.
Yes.
Yeah, and that messes Gator up.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Everybody says, you got to be right around this next tree, or right over this next hill, and they keep going.
No, I've been on those tracking things where you think just right over here. Yep. This is where it's going to be.
It can't be far.
Yeah,
it would be easier if some of the hunters used a more appropriate brown for deer hunting as opposed to something that they got at the shooting range. Don't you think?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I noticed with 300 mag, you don't have to track a lot.
Not a lot.
I've tracked 6 with a 300 mag this year and didn't find one.
Really? Well, just a bad shot then.
Yeah. If it's that bad that you need me with a 300 Magnum, we're probably not going to find your deer.
Yeah, if you've squeezed that one and he didn't go down or she didn't go down, calling Gator may be a waste of time. Because that's back to that shot you don't want, right?
Right,
That's the one you don't want.
Yeah.
The also just talk about this a little bit because you know how deer behave, and look, what we want is for people to have success and
have a good experience.
Yeah, and have a good experience. We've talked about this. Our whoever you hunted with, for me it was my dad, and he taught me. If you get one down, sit. Just hold what you got.
Don't push it.
Do not get
just
up.
Let it die.
And, if it goes out of the field or it goes around, if you can't see it anymore, but you think you hit it, just sit. Don't get up and go pursuing this deer because if it has been hit.
You mean Greg's favorite thing today?
Yeah. If it has been hit and it's in the process of expiring,
we call it beating the bullet to the
okay, right.
Yeah.
So talk about that a minute. Why that's important.
He's got to have time. A double lung shot, that's what we were saying a minute ago, goes 125 yards, and if you push him again with a smaller round, he gets up and out of the end of his blood trail, out of his bed, and he moves another 200 because you scared him within the first 5 minutes. You beat the bullet to him.
Right.
Then, we can find him, but a lot. Okay, so if you jump a deer, your chances of recovery go down by 50%.
Oh, wow.
In my opinion.
Okay.
And
with your experience, you would know.
And you jump him twice, it's gone down by 50% again.
Mm-hmm.
So every time you bump him or get him up, you're making it harder on yourself and me and everybody else to get him up. And if you push him on the neighbor's lands that don't like you, you'll never get him.
Yeah, that's tough. It's best just to let him go. He's probably going to lay down.
He won't get any more dead.
Let him expire. And if you've got other people hunting with you, you can wait and get all of them on the site. And
I prefer you don't do that.
Well, for most of us, we would do. That's what we would do, and kind of come at it from different directions.
Right.
And we usually don't have any problem with it. But in some cases, you have to call. You and Gator.
I tell people to go 100, but don't go 2 if you're not liking what you see. The less traffic I can get in on a track, the less I've got to work through.
Yeah.
So we ask a lot of questions before we get there. We got a series of, and some of them are just for our entertainment. What'd you shoot him with? That's one of our big things, and so we can have some fun with it. But,
right.
But that does matter too. If you shot him and you don't see blood, and you shot him with a 243, then we understand what's going on. Right. But what do you have?
I would think that's really important for what you're about to do.
Yeah. Do you have bone? Is there white hair? Because all those are telltale signs of what we need to do with the dog.
You kind of know where the deer's been hit by.
That's
all
right.
that.
Right. And we try to assess, and Briar always says, "Hey, where do you think he's hit at while we're on the way?" And he always says, "How big is it?" I don't ever ask that question because it don't matter to me.
Right. Well, you
I'm going to track
that,
him.
though. Yeah.
If it's a doe, I'm going to feel like, man, I don't want to go track this deer.
I know.
But
I know, but when
I don't ever mask.
But a lot of times, if it is a doe, the time it is important is like what I had the other day when it's a kid's first deer.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Then everybody wants, because the kid's excited.
That's like I say, that's why I don't ask. It doesn't matter to me because it was important enough to you to shoot it, and it's important enough for us to find it. So,
all right, we'll come back when Rick and Bubba University, the podcast continues. All right, so Bubba, we know this on the show. We've all been there. You and I have even been asked about it, and we've answered the question. Nobody likes spending money with companies that everything they got on their website, everything they put in their commercials, seems to be things that you would not support. But then you're thinking to yourself, well, I got to have this service.
Right. What am I going to do?
Who am I going with? Well, the good news is this, Patriot Mobile. So in this category, if you're worried about who you're getting your cell service from, and you look at some of the major networks that are out there and some of the major players, they got all this wokeness going on and all that, and you're like, I just wish there was some way not to be part of that. Well, there is. That's why Patriot Mobile is there. America's only Christian conservative wireless provider, nationwide coverage, the best 4G and 5G network, So you get the same great service while supporting a company that fights to, preserve our God-given rights and freedoms and the things that you love. Now, right now, they have a performance guarantee. You're going to love their values, but they got to do a good job, right? Well, okay. They offer a performance guarantee. If you're not happy with your coverage, you can switch between the 3 major carriers for free. So if you don't like them, you can go somewhere else, and you can do that for free. But you're going to love them. They're 100% U.S.-based customer service team. Bubba, how many stories have you and I told them there about that?
Yeah, a lot.
Talking to people, and you're like, I can't even communicate with you. 100% U.S.-based customer service team, making switching easy. Just go to patriotmobile.com/Rick Bubba. That's patriotmobile.com/Rick Bubba, or call them 878-PATRIOT. That's 878-PATRIOT. So we're back on Rick and Bubba University, the podcast. We've got Brian Morris with us. We got his son Briar over there. Don't be yawning. And Briar's over there, and they make a living going out, or at least supplement to how they make a living by tracking deer for people with the Gator, the track dog. And we've been talking about some of the things that would be helpful, that you don't end up in this situation, right. And some great stories that they got for us too.
Brian, who are some of the people you've done tracking for? Can you say?
Yeah, we've Hank Jr. We've been to Hank Jr.'s place 3 times.
Yeah.
Will Ainsworth, we tracked for his sons back the first of this year.
We know Will.
Really
good. We've hunted with him before. It's just funny because his sons were so small when we saw them. For them to be out hunting now is kind of weird.
They were bow hunting too.
Really?
Back in bow season.
Oh, really? How old are they now?
12, maybe.
Yeah,
13?
something. Yeah.
Yeah. Last time we saw them, they were pulling up pansies out in front of the lodge.
Yeah. Did Hank? Were you successful for Hank?
One time we were. It was his neighbor from Tennessee that we found the deer for. He had back-whacked one. He hit one high himself. So.
The back-whack.
I love the terms you've come up with all these.
Do you ever look over and go, it's a back-whack?
Oh,
yeah.
We can tell that on the phone most of the time, can't we?
So really, y'all will look at each other and go, back-whack.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah, it's interesting when you think about the resilience for the deer to live has always blown me away. I am completely shocked. I'm talking about even when they're hit good, how far they can go. It's really amazing.
The deer that's on the picture, the big deer by the pond.
Yeah.
So that deer, the guy that I tracked for, his father shot that deer. He's from South Carolina.
Yeah.
And he shot that deer, and they called me. It was, 4 or 5 hours later. And we put on the deer, and Gator tracked it 3/4 of a mile.
Yeah.
Around it's Lowndes County, so there's mountains over there in southern Lowndes County. To me, I live in Crenshaw County, and there's flat. There's there's not a hill where I live at.
Yeah.
But over there, they tracked him. He tracked him around this mountain for 3/4 of a mile, and almost threw a food plot to a dead deer that had a shot through the bottom of the leg, and I reckon it got some kind of vitals in there, but it was dead at 3/4 of a mile.
3/4 of a mile?
0.76 miles.
Wow. And yeah, I'm always surprised by it. I'm always thinking, well, it's just right here. And I'm talking about deer that were dead. I'm talking about deer that were still alive, how far they had gone.
Yep.
So let's talk about dealing with bow hunters versus the rifle. Yeah, I mean, it's
bow hunters in general. Somebody that is a serious bow hunter, and people are going to take offense to this when I say it, but
that's all right.
A bow hunter is generally the better hunter of the two, because I'm not a bow hunter. I'm not going to spend that kind of time doing that kind of work, because he's got to get the deer to within 20 yards to be able to shoot it.
He's got to really be talented to be quiet and get in that close.
I can go out and shoot my rifle 3 times and be good for the year.
Right.
He's got to spend 3 months shooting his so that he knows he's right and working on it. And the next best thing that comes out, he's spending tons of money on his. And I can't do that. I don't have the patience for that. we really quit hunting. I have. Briar still hunts, but the only time I got in a tree stand this year was to sit with him two or three different
well,
times.
to your point, I'm a rifle hunter too, and I don't bow hunt. I'm still hunting with the first rifle I ever bought. I mean, I don't need to change it. I don't need anything.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
It does the job just fine. And but do they, even though they're the better hunters? I mean, we're still talking about a weapon. The room for errors is not very big.
With the broadheads and stuff of today, honestly, if you hit him anywhere close to where you're supposed to, he's going to be somewhere. Now, if you hit him high, our most common thing that we see with a bow is you hit him up at the back strap at a really steep angle, because most bow hunters like to sit at 40 feet in the air, right?
Yeah, really high.
And they're going to shoot him within 25 yards. That's a really steep angle. You've hit him in the back strap. You've hit him on the offside shoulder, and you've got one lung, if anything, and a deer can live for the next 10 years on one lung.
Oh, wow.
Not going to kill him. But
so it's the down.
it's the straight down angle. You may not even hit a lung, depending on which way, upper lung, or if you hit him from the right side, I think it is, you're shooting over the top of the right lung and into his left offside shoulder, and it's stuck in his shoulder, and you got no vitals, you've got no exit wound. So with no exit wound, there's no blood, because the entrance is so high that if it drips off the air, is the only place you're going to get it, and you're not going to get it there.
Yeah. So you're saying they tend to be the better hunters, but there is a lot more room for error.
There is.
Yeah, but usually with the modern arrows, the broadheads,
right?
If you hit him pretty good,
you got something with a 3-inch hole in it.
Yeah, right.
Both sides.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, I mean, sometimes you can see it as soon as they get hit.
That's right.
It makes a pretty good
That's
trail.
right.
When you were talking about him getting a deer, talking about Gator now, and he's baying him by a body of water, is that telling me that really the deer would prefer not to swim?
The water's the last place he wants to be.
Right, because we've been told that when they're injured, they go to water. Is that true, or is that urban legend?
90% of them go to water. I will agree with that.
Okay.
But it doesn't always happen. Let me ask you this. That it don't climb hills.
Yeah.
Are
they going to the water, or are they simply running downhill because it's an easier run?
They really don't want to run downhill. So if you get in like where I live is flat, like I said, so you don't really have any issues with that. Until we started tracking, we didn't see this, but I have a Garmin that has a tracking collar on him, and it's got topo maps on it. So a deer wants to stay, from what I see, on the topos. So once the first 300 yards, it's away from you. That's where he wants to be, is away from you, whatever it takes. And then whenever he starts thinking, where can I go? He's going to stay on the topo. So he's not going uphill and he's not going downhill. He's going to walk along the side of this hill.
Stay level.
Yeah. Especially if he's got a leg injury or something like that, he's wanting to stay level and still get away. But they're going to go to water because they may have to bed down. My thoughts are they may have to bed down for the next 2 weeks. You got to have water.
Okay. It has nothing to do with the injury.
No.
It has to do with what they think it may take to survive the injury.
They're looking for survival at that point, and their natural instincts are going to take them to somewhere close to food and somewhere close to water. So he can survive without food for a while, but he can't make it without the water. That's my thoughts on it. Yeah. And the water is the last place he wants his body.
He don't want to get in that water because he can't swim as well now,
right?
Because he's injured,
right? And he will get in there to defend himself because the dog can't do anything with him in there either,
right?
So he'll get in the water and he won't get 3 feet off the edge. He'll be 2 feet off the edge with his horns down at the dog, just sitting there looking at him.
Well, that's what I was wondering, because I can understand how a dog can bay an animal that can get in a tree because he thinks you can't get me.
He wants.
How
to
do
fight,
you bay a deer that can run?
He wants to fight.
He wants to fight. Okay.
Now you can't. I don't know that I've ever bayed a doe. Have we ever bayed a doe, Briar?
We ran one.
We ran a bunch. I don't know that I've ever bayed a doe because she don't want to fight.
Right.
She just wants to escape. Now that 4 or 5 year old buck, he's fishing to fight.
Okay.
And the one that just gonna get your dog hurt is that 2-year-old buck that's
full of energy.
Yeah, he has.
Has Gator ever been hurt? Has he been? attacked?
He's been rolled several times.
Oh, really?
Really?
Yeah, he's got scars all over him. I say scars. He's got scratch marks and missing hair all over him. So
Rick had one that got rolled and stomped.
Now I did have a doe stomp my dog because she had a fawn.
Right.
And they were bedded down behind our house, and it was fawn season.
Yep.
Now that's different because now she'll try to use those hoofs to beat that dog and beat him down if she can.
We had one bayed 2 or 3 weeks ago in a creek with both our dogs. So Gator's son, Deuce, we've started taking him. And
Deuce is in the mix.
Does he pick up on the training from Gator, or does he have to have a natural talent to do that?
He follows along with Gator and trails what Gator. Now Deuce is liable to get off and run a doe over there because he's 8 months old. You know, he's not not totally broke.
Not
yet.
as disciplined as Gator.
He's not as disciplined at all. But we got in there and this deer was shot in the hams and had him in a creek, run him in a creek and bait him. Gator was catching him and Deuce got up there and started baiting him. Whenever I got up there to take him out, he turned around and turns on the dogs and goes to stomping, like you said. And Briar's got that on video. He would rear up and just stomp at the dogs and back the dogs off of him until we got him down.
Yeah, and those hoofs, you don't want to take. That's a lot of weight coming down on top of you.
And in 3 foot of water.
Yeah. All right, we'll come back and I'm going to ask you some tips that you can give people, that may not have access to Gator. They're saying, well, I don't have anything. We mentioned one of the mistakes people make. But give some pointers on if you are looking for a deer and you don't have access to y'all, what are some things that help you have a higher probability of finding it? And we'll do that as we wrap up and come back on this edition of Rick and Bubba University, the podcast.
This is the Rick and Bubba Show. Watch more at blazetv.com/Rick and Bubba.
Rick and Bubba, Rick and Bubba.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about Jason Whitlock. He's our brethren here on Blaze TV. If you turn on the news right now, you open up social media these days, one thing is becoming blatantly obvious, and we talk about this on the show all the time. We've got themanchurch.com with the strategy to try to help this too, so we saw this as well, and it's because it's so obvious, and that's that we need godly men. God-fearing men right now is something that this world desperately needs. So Jason Whitlock was inspired to organize Fearless Army Roll Call. It's an all-day event. It's to encourage men to put on the full armor of God, and you can participate in this and take a stand against the evil forces that are destroying our culture. Now, at this conference, you'll be hearing some great speeches from some great speakers, and Jason and several other guests will be talking to you, inspiring you to be a better husband, a better father, a better witness for Christ. Roll Call is going to inspire, uplift, and entertain. Now, if you want to join hundreds of men in Nashville, Tennessee, it will be on April the 15th, so get that on your calendar. It's a very important conference. Tickets will likely sell out, so go ahead and secure yours today by going to fearlessarmyrollcall.com. Put all that together. fearlessarmyrollcall.com. Again, that's fearlessarmyrollcall.com to reserve your spot today. So we're wrapping up this edition of Rick and Bubba University, the podcast, and we've had a blast with Brian Morris and his son Briar, and they track deer with their dog Gator, and I guess soon Deuce when he gets ready to go. So if you're on the scene, I'm good because I know you and Gator, y'all going to find it, and Briar's going to get in the mix. He's going to video it. But let's say I don't have access to you, Briar, Gator, or anyone like y'all. If I just would like to minimize, the losing a deer that has been shot, we mentioned one, stay put, right? That's lesson one. Yep. Don't get up as soon as you've shot and start tromping off into where you think it went.
Time is on your side.
Yeah. What are some things, just the way they behave, if I'm leaving a food plot, I know the direction the deer went, because that's number one, make note of the direction, right? And is the deer likely to have just bolted straight away from me? Are they you talked about they like to tend to do they tend to double back? What happens?
It's straight lines. So when we get done, you can look at our Garmin pretty much every time, and the deer is going to run a straight line unless there's a mountain in front of him.
Right.
Until he gets to a stream, a creek, large creeks, like I say, he don't want to go across it. But in the first 200 to 300 yards, he's probably going to cross it to get away from you if he don't turn down it. Everybody's like, well, I can't find the blood on the other side of the creek. That's probably because he didn't cross it. He turned and went down beside it because he's too injured to go across it, or he don't really want to get away from it unless you're pushing him if you run him off. But yeah, injured deer are going to run straight lines or common trails. And, if you can't find blood and you don't have us, then I would get on a deer trail and go to looking. An interstate deer trail, as we would call it.
Yeah.
Something major.
Brian, what kind of cost are we talking about for your service?
We don't have a price, a set rate. We do it off of just tips.
Really?
Whatever you give us is whatever. We don't do it for the money. It's entertaining. That's a lot of fun. But
and I know we're going to get email. Do you sell Gator puppies anywhere? I know our listeners.
You got
I know
Gator
what they're going to
breeding?
be.
I get all kinds of questions. Yes, we have bred Gator a couple of times. No, we don't sell puppies.
Okay, but you have. But where Deuce come from?
Yes,
Right.
There are some Gator puppies out there.
we keep them.
Yeah, that's right. So you want to build an army of
Right,
Gators?
we're working on a bloodline. We're trying to create something.
Are you taking with him? And when you think about the females, what are you looking for in a female for him?
Something cold nose, something tree and walker breed.
Okay.
I had a guy there in Brantley that hunts. A friend of ours told me, he said every dog's got the same nose. It's what's between their ears.
Okay.
That sorts it all out.
Okay.
For you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brian, I was looking at some of the videos on your Facebook site, and you've got some really cool drone footage that looks like it's shot with thermal.
Yep.
Not everybody has thermal on their drone. That's pretty cool stuff.
That guy's he does recovery also. So we met on a track, and the hunter had called me the day before, and there was a lot of rain, and he ended up calling me and the drone. The drone ran it, found the deer, watched him run away, and me and him were sitting there talking, and like, what do y'all want to do now? He said, I've got 45 minutes of battery left on my drone. I said, well, I would love to have a video of Gator working.
So oh, wow.
We started Gator on the track, and he videoed the whole thing with the drone, and then he came back. Actually, we were trying to get a recovery on drone with the video, the thermal video of it, but the second time he came, it didn't work out either. The deer was still alive and leg shot and run off. So
yeah, do you find
some really cool videos?
Do you find that, and we'll put all that when where people can find where to go there, or I'll ask you about it. We're about to wrap up. You can tell us, but do you find that most of the deer y'all are tracking are still alive, or are most of them already down, and you find the deer?
Still, I'd say we recovered 111 this year, and I didn't keep count this year.
That's a pretty good number.
There was over 60, I know. I'm gonna have to go back through because people keep asking me that same question.
Oh, okay.
How many did we bay? There was over 60 that we had to bay.
Okay.
And we went on 242 or 243 trips. So yeah, most every deer we see is alive. The whole month of January, I think I found 4 dead deer.
So they were all alive.
Yeah, everything was alive.
Do you take care of that?
Yes.
Okay, because they want the deer. So the hunter's not with you the whole time trying to wait on you to bay. No. So if you they tell you when they bring you in, bring the deer back.
I don't drag deer.
Well, I mean, get the deer down. Yeah, get the deer down.
Yeah, get the deer down.
Yeah, that's a better word. That's a better phrase.
When I come into your woods, I take over.
Right.
My gun, my dog. You leave yours in the truck.
Right, because you don't want anybody.
Safety is now an issue.
Right, yeah.
Safety of Gator, safety of me is an issue. That's why we wear bright orange everywhere we go. We're suited up in bright orange. Yeah, Gator's got a vest.
If you didn't want us to take over, you shouldn't have called us.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, that's smart.
It's my world once we get there. And I carry a pistol on my side, and we do everything we got to do within reason. Now, if we get to a point where we decide that, hey, what we're doing right here is not ethical and trying to chase this deer down, he's going to live.
There you go.
We got to pull off.
Yeah.
We won't continue to pursue something. A Gator, he will stop once he determines. And he will, if he can't bay the deer within 300 to 400 yards, most of the time the deer is changing scent by then.
Okay.
And he will come back to us and stop.
So if Gator comes back, it's over.
It's over. When Gator shows back up, and I'm watching
hunt's done.
Yeah, the hunt's done. Gator's not. He's not smelling that wax anymore.
No. Somebody's heart's broken at that point. No.
I know, and you've probably had to see a couple of broken hearts.
Oh yeah.
But then there's the elation. You got those where everybody's fired up and loving it.
We got a really good friend that we've made through this. The Ivies. They're from Orange Beach. They used to hunt in Lowndes County. Now they hunt over in Union Springs area. And Briar gets to go hunting with them pretty regular. But when I met them, I pulled up. There's a little girl sitting on the front steps. She was crying when I pulled up. Well, you think she's probably in trouble for something.
Yeah.
Turns out it's her deer that we're tracking.
Oh, wow.
No.
It was the very first deer that Gator had ever bayed. So we put on it, and a mile later, they had like 4,000 acres or 5,000 acres of land right there. Yeah. We got it bayed in a mile down by a creek and got it down. And it was a fiasco of getting back to them because we were on foot with a flashlight.
Wow.
And when they finally got over there to us because we just yelled and walked, and they finally found us, and no phone service where we were. And when we got back, when she got to where she could see the deer, she was crying again. So
so you got to see that.
Yeah, you get the highest of highs and the lowest of lows.
And at that point, you're hooked.
Yep.
Well, thanks for taking time to be with us. Brian Morris, South Alabama Deer Tracking Service, and we'll get all of his information there that you can access if you'll look at the link that gets you the podcast. Briar, good to see you too. And y'all tell Gator that we said hello. And thanks to all of you for joining us on this edition of Rick and Bubba University, the podcast.